Hello, security pros, and to everybody that's joined so far and that will continue to join us for today's ESA webinar, Boost RMR for Commercial Fire Systems. With over 30 million commercial security and life safety systems still relying on POTS communications today, chances are you have or will have customers affected by the ongoing transition away from it. Government regulations have eliminated the price gap and requirements for carriers to maintain POTS lines, making them more expensive and less reliable than ever before. During this presentation, we will discuss how this situation has created opportunities for dealers to save their customers money and boost their own RMR for commercial fire systems. Explore the UL-Listed Telguard fire alarm communicators that give you a more reliable, more cost-effective, more technologically advanced solution for your next application. I'm Daniela Chavez, ESA's Marketing and Communication Specialist, and I'm excited to lead you on this webinar today. But before we dive in, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us on your first ESA webinar. You will be muted for the duration of this session, but that does not mean that we don't want to hear from you. If a question or comment comes to mind at any point during today's session, click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure that we save some time for your questions with our experts today. We also will be recording this webinar so you can re-watch the on-demand session and share it with your colleagues via ESA's YouTube channel. If your company is a member of ESA, we thank you and we hope you're utilizing your benefits to save, expand your team, and get connected to the ESA community. If you're not yet a member of the Electronic Security Association, check us out. ESA is the largest and longest standing association serving the pro-installed electronic security and life safety industry. Our members are integrators, dealers, monitoring centers, and even manufacturers and service providers in the space. You'd be surprised at the power an ESA membership holds for your company. Get a feel for all of the ESA benefits, including savings on business insurance, training, customized in-house onboarding and professional development programs, peer networking groups, government advocacy programs, certifications that satisfy state licensing, and in some cases are also alternatives to NICET at esaweb.org. One of our membership specialists would be happy to walk you through these benefits and the application process. We at ESA realize your time is valuable and we appreciate you spending that time with us today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Scott Goby. Scott is the North Central Regional Sales Manager for Telguard, an IoT company providing universal cellular alarm communicators for the commercial and residential security life safety industry. He is a 7-year veteran of Telguard, having previously represented the company in customer service and marketing roles. Scott has made it his mission to help dealers boost their recurring monthly revenue as POTS lines become phased out across the Midwest. He graduated with honors from Clemson University, earning a bachelor's degree in marketing, and is a Tigers fan through and through. So Scott, please take it away.
Thanks so much for that wonderful introduction, Daniela. And I want to thank everyone who took the time to attend today's webinar. I'm very excited about the opportunity to discuss how to boost your recurring monthly revenue for those commercial fire systems. This is a very important and relevant topic right now and a good area of focus as you develop your strategy going into 2024. Just a quick rundown of today's agenda for this webinar. Going to start with an overview of who Telguard is. From there, we're going to get into what's going on with POTS and what is influencing users to change service. We're also going to cover how the ongoing problems with POTS has created opportunities for dealers to make RMR. And of course, we'll cover Telguard's line of fire alarm communicators so you know what your options are for replacing POTS and boosting RMR. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So Telguard, we are a manufacturer of cellular alarm communicators. With over 35 years of industry experience comes a lot of firsts and comes a lot of product evolution. Given our long history in the security life safety industry, we really do consider ourselves to be the alarm communication experts. Our company was actually started back in the mid 80s when our founder, his house was broken into while he was on vacation, someone had actually gone in, cut his landline, and disabled that security system. Well, he was an engineer, so this really got the wheels turning in his head and ultimately led him to invent the world's first cellular alarm communicator. From there, we've been at the forefront of cellular technology ever since. In 1999, when analog was the latest, we introduced a wireless analog device for security. Then when 2G came along in 2005, we came out with the 2G version of a cellular alarm communicator. Then in 2010, we introduced the first universal sole path commercial fire alarm communicator in the industry, something that we're very proud of, something that we still make and support to this day, and something that's become one of our flagship products. And then from there, we introduced the CDMA and 3G units around 2012, which I know most of you are familiar with from the sunsets that we went through last year. One relatively new update on that front is the roaming agreement that another carrier reached with AT&T to take on their 3G traffic. That was originally supposed to end sometime this year, but recently we caught word that end of service date has been extended until May of 2024. So basically meaning if you have active devices that are 3G, they're covered under that roaming agreement. You're still good to go. You're still covered. However, you still need to start focusing on replacing them before that May 2024 cutoff date. And then from there, when LTE became the prominent network, shortly afterwards in 2016, we came out with an LTE device. And then just a few years ago, we began to roll out our 5G LTE-M radios. Essentially, that's the latest and greatest technology available now per se. It's designed and catered to our industry's type of devices. So Telguard has been there since the beginning and adapted our products to use the most prominent cellular technology available over the years. And we're still going strong today. So next, I want to just take a quick look at the Telguard system. What you see on the screen here is essentially Telguard's ecosystem, a look at the journey of an alarm signal from cradle to grave. So we are providing an alternative communication path to POTS through systems that may not have even originally intended to use cellular. Whether it's a completely new install or you need to retrofit an older system, our technology is going to allow you to add a cellular pathway, to add an IP pathway to the central station. Traditionally, signals were passed over those old school copper phone lines. However, in the past 5 years or so, we've been working with central stations to update devices to use IP delivery and eliminate POTS from as much of the process as we can. So basically, if you look here, you'll have an alarm event that'll occur from your fire system. And from there, the Telguard communicator is going to use full data to capture that signal, transmit it over cellular or Ethernet to our backend servers, which we call the TCC, where that signal is decrypted and then delivered on over to the central station. So that's kind of, start to end how that Telguard process works for getting those signals to your central station. Just a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how our systems work. So what drives commercial fire dealers to use a cellular communicator? Well, one of the main reasons that's driving commercial fire dealers to switch to cellular is the federal regulatory changes related to POTS lines. So the first one you need to be aware of is the expiration of FCC Order 19-72A. This was an order that the FCC issued in 2019, basically telling carriers that they must maintain landline service at an affordable cost for 3 years. Well, that order expired in August of 2022. So now the price gap is gone, meaning the carriers are no longer required to maintain those POTS lines at an affordable rate. Prices for POTS lines, if they haven't already, will increase now that they are no longer protected by the FCC. So this is a big thing that we're starting to see affecting dealers to use those cellular alarm communicators. The second federal regulatory change you need to be aware of comes from US Code 214. So with US Code 214, the government is making it easier than ever before for carriers to change their technology to another service, and basically saying, hey, here's what you need to do. Give a certain number of days notice to your users. Let them know an end date for that service. And once you've done that, you can go through with all of your technology changes. So basically, this makes it easier for those intermediary carriers, these local exchange carriers, to say, hey, I don't want to deal with this analog stuff anymore. I want to go ahead and just move everything over to digital. It's the way of the future. If we're going to be doing business with anybody, it's all digital. So local exchange carriers they no longer have to go through all this paperwork, all this red tape, all of this waiting before implementing those changes. And on top of that, the alternatives that they're using, they don't have to meet the alarm panel reliability requirements. And that can really cause a lot of problems with your fire system down the line. So another reason that drives commercial fire dealers to switch to a cellular alternative is going to be the degradation and lack of evolution of POTS technology. I've said the word POTS over and over again now. Basically, what I'm referring to when I say POTS is plain old telephone service or your traditional landline. This is something that hasn't evolved too much since its inception. I mean, we're talking about a technology that was invented in the 1880s, not the 1980s, the 1880s. It's a technology that is older than the automobile, right? I mean, the word old is literally in the name, plain old telephone service. But what's really alarming about this to me is that today there are still over 30 million commercial properties relying on this technology that hasn't changed really since the 1880s to protect their lives, their property, their fire system, which to me in 2023, is that not kind of a bizarre thing to wrap your head around, that this is still in use and we're still relying on it today, given how fast technology changes and moves in this era? It is a little bizarre. But with this in mind, there are really two key things I want you to understand here about these ongoing problems. You have the front end transition and the back end transition. The front end transition, this is going to be when a customer switches to another service, right? So when a customer switches from an analog line to a digital line, from a POTS line to a voice over IP line. This is the only thing that we as security dealers, as fire alarm installers, have control of. You know, if you're on site and you see a landline, speak with your customer about replacing it now so they can avoid problems with their system later. I've seen it happen numerous times where customers, in their attempt to save money by bundling their phone and their internet, discover that their fire panel is going into trouble because they switched the service on the front end without letting their fire alarm dealer or security dealer know. Well, next thing you know, you're going to be out there on site doing a service call, only to discover that voice over IP was the culprit for the issues they were having with their system. And a lot of that is, like we mentioned earlier, because they don't have to meet the alarm panel reliability requirements that our devices are used to working with. So that's the front end transition to keep an eye out for. The next one is going to be your back end transition, right? And this is where it gets a little tricky, right? As you can see here on this graphic, you'll notice that when you make a call, it's not a direct connection between point A and point B, right? That call is going to go through several switches along the way, and it can be handled by multiple different carriers along that path. Carriers who are in the process of transitioning these switches to digital, which, as we know, doesn't mesh well with a system that's designed for POTS technology and voltage, with our industry's type of system. So this problem, it really is similar to the front end transition, but it's something that's completely out of the dealer's control. It's entirely unpredictable if one of those switches along the path has been changed from analog to digital. It's just completely out of our control. And plenty of times I've seen this happen with our dealers, where I'll hear customers talk about they were using their phone lines and their POTS lines just fine, with no issues until yesterday, with no issues until last week. Something happened. Nobody made a change. Nobody changed that transition on the front end, but no one made a call to anybody. And then all of a sudden, because of what's happening on the back end, you have a fire system that's been working 100% of the time become something that works 50% of the time. And we all know from dealing with fire in the world of fire alarms, that's just not going to cut it. And a lot of that right now is being caused from that back end analog to digital conversion from those local exchange carriers using those switches along the path. So why are these intermediate carriers changing switches from analog to digital? Another main reason is the natural aging and the lack of evolution of POTS technology. The equipment that's needed to properly maintain or replace these analog switches, that equipment is no longer manufactured. That's going to make them very scarce, very hard to come by, and it's going to make any maintenance that needs to be done to it almost just absurdly expensive. So if one of those analog switches, if that does go down due to, let's say, an inclement weather event or something along those lines, they're either going to pay a premium for a new analog switch, or most likely they're going to replace it with something that's more affordable to them, a cheaper digitized version of it, like voice over IP. So the more that these carriers are going to have to pay for this equipment that they don't make anymore, is scarce, the more they have to pay for that, the more costs are going to get passed down to the customer. And with these switches, these copper twisted pair switches, copper wire is old, right? Copper wire is old, it's expensive, and it's prone to failures. Because of these costs, carriers, they're financially motivated and they're actively trying to transition to VoIP, voice over IP, digital because of costs, which again does not mesh with a system designed for POTS and voltage. So at the end of the day, copper wire, analog, POTS, whatever you want to call it, is going to cost way more to maintain. It's unreliable. These local exchange carriers are already changing it up to keep up, to keep pace, really. And this has, and it will even more so in the future, affect the reliability of a system that's using POTS to deliver signals, and really, given the number that are using them today, potentially putting millions of systems at risk. So what does replacing POTS, this problem with POTS, what does that mean for RMR? Well, these federal regulatory changes and these ongoing problems with POTS technology, they really have increased consumer demand for an alternative, right? FCC order 1972A, essentially that price gap is gone, and that started back in August of 2022. Carriers, they no longer have to provide the service at an affordable cost. If you want a landline, if you want to use POTS, you're going to have to pay a premium for it. I mean, these days, landlines can cost you $100 to $200 per line per month. And like we said, that price gap is gone, and they're only going to go up from here. So as prices increase, property managers are going to seek out a cheaper alternative, right? When carriers inevitably start charging more than the carrier that you use for your phone connection, they're going to start charging you more and passing down those costs. So the thinking behind it is, okay, this is going to naturally help steer people away from POTS, away from this antiquated analog technology, which in turn is going to have those property managers reaching out to say, hey, what else do you have? What do you have that's less expensive? That would be the ideal scenario for us, because over time, it would change into more recurring monthly revenue for commercial fire dealers. And with US Code 214, the government's making it easier than ever before to end service or change to a new technology. The largest carrier of POTS lines in the United States announced early last year, I believe it was, early 2022, that they have plans to reduce their copper footprint by 50% by the end of 2025. So as part of that strategy, their customers, who are also your customers and property managers, will get a sales call from their provider about, hey, have I got a deal for you? I can save you money by bundling your digital phone and internet lines into one, which to the end user is going to be the same, right? It's going to feel the same when they pick up their phone in their office and they make a call. It's going to look and feel the same. They're not going to notice it, right? The truth of the matter is that it's a digital version of it that's right on the premises. Then that is going to make a difference when it comes to our industry's type of systems, when it comes to fire alarm systems. So we're going to see customers whose phone lines have been working for years all of a sudden start having problems because they decided to go with a VoIP solution or bundle their internet and their phone into one line. And that's just because it's been proven that it's not as efficient and it's not as accurate as a cellular device would be. So we're going to hear from customers that their provider has already contacted them with an end date for their service, and that they need to act quickly. That's what US Code 214 allows them to do. So with the plans that the carriers have in place as a reaction to federal regulatory changes, lack of evolution of POTS technology, you can expect landline service to degrade over the next few years, certainly by 50% by 2025, if you're using the largest carrier of POTS lines in the United States right now. So because of this, what's probably going to happen is we, or you as a commercial fire alarm dealer, are going to start getting an influx of customers reaching out to you, seeking out advice for better solutions. But we're also probably going to see some of those customers that have been reliably working for years, all of a sudden they're getting into problems because of a front end transition or a back end transition. So because of all this, consumer demand for cellular, for these alternative communication paths to POTS for security system are on the rise. So when we talk about what replacing POTS means for fire dealers and their RMR, I can't stress enough that you really need to understand this total addressable market. There are over 30 million commercial properties still relying on POTS landlines to deliver their critical fire alarm signals. And keep in mind the fact that the carriers, they're planning to reduce their copper footprint by 50% by 2025 in the United States. These factors, they present an opportunity for commercial fire dealers to capitalize on these market trends, and this opportunity is a one for them to increase their RMR. With the cost of POTS lines skyrocketing, and with the understanding that NFPA 72 requires 2 lines for a commercial fire system, dealers can approach their customers with an opportunity to save significantly by replacing one or both of those lines in their fire system with a cellular alternative, with a cellular and Ethernet, a dual path alternative. So not only does the customer save money on their monthly bill, but you, as the commercial fire dealer, you now have a new source of recurring monthly revenue coming to you every month. You're taking that revenue your customer was paying to their POTS provider every month, and you're putting it in your pocket by taking over that system with cellular. And even more importantly, this is also going to allow you to take control of the pathway to the central station, in a sense that you can eliminate the uncertainty from a back end, front end transition, analog to digital conversion by putting a cellular alarm communicator in place. You're giving the customer a more reliable solution that's going to fit with the technology that they have in place. So this cellular fire alarm communicator, it's something that you can use to replace these antiquated technology that saves the customer money, makes you money every month, takes the money they were paying their POTS provider, puts it in your pocket. And this is really where the RMR and this opportunity is stemming from, these market trends, the technology itself. Slowly, we are transitioning to these alternative technologies. So on top of opportunities for RMR, and from more of a sales perspective, this is also a tremendous opportunity to offer a better, more technologically advanced solution to protect your customers' lives and property. as a selling point to your customers, not only does a cellular solution save them money on their bill, but help them to understand that they're getting a better, more reliable solution. They're getting a better value for a cheaper price. With RMR, you want to keep your customers as long as you can, right? So the more you take care of them, the more likely they're to stay with you. So capitalize now on this influx of outreach and communication from these commercial property managers that are looking for these alternatives, and leverage your expertise to build trust, right? Things with these cellular products that are important, like 5G LTE-M technology. It's using this cellular network that was specifically designed for our industry's type of devices, those IoT, Internet of Things devices. And it's catering exactly to what our industry's type of technology needs. 5G LTE technology, it's going to offer the longest installation life available in the market. And because it's capable of working on LTE, because it can work on 5G, it's automatically going to transition over whenever the LTE sunset does occur. So it's automatically primed to transition over. You also have things like IP delivery over cellular, which essentially converts the signal to IP once it hits our backend servers. IP delivery almost never delays, it almost never fails, and it gives you another layer of redundancy on top of cellular, on top of Ethernet. It's really a more wholesome solution. You want to provide your customers comfort that you're getting ahead of the ongoing problems with POTS that have and will affect POTS over the next few years by giving them that more modern solution, adding more value to their existing system while cutting costs. Explain that you're doing so with their best interest in mind, and just explain, as the expert with all this that's going on with POTS, you have the ultimate fix. You have access to this cellular alarm communicator for their system that can get ahead of all these problems and eliminate any of that uncertainty that they may be experiencing with their POTS service right now. So this is really what it boils down to, right? This is the recipe for boosting your RMR right now and moving forward in 2024, right? Everyone's a winner, right? Customers are going to save money. They're going to get a more reliable, more technologically advanced solution. And you, the dealer, you get the RMR that they were paying the phone company. So I want to strongly encourage any of my commercial fire dealers on the call today listening that may be in the process of doing some of that strategic planning for 2024 right now, to take advantage of and account for the fact that we have these over 30 million commercial systems relying on this antiquated technology from the 1800s to protect their lives and their property. I mean, the fact is that demand is on the rise due to these factors like government regulations surrounding POTS, the degradation of POTS technology, price increases. These are all things that are driving consumers to seek an alternative method for delivering their fire alarm signals. Use this influx in outreach from customers. They're researching solutions. Use that as an opportunity to be the expert, right? Start planning ahead. Contact your central station for a list of accounts, of your accounts that are still using POTS, still using landlines. Start working down that list. Touch base with your sales team and your marketing team with maybe discuss an outreach campaign to these these customers still using POTS, and offer them the opportunity to save money by switching to cellular. You treat the POTS sunset like a cellular sunset. A lot of people across the industry have been referring to this as the POTS sunset. Anyways, I've heard that circulating around, which it does make sense if you think about it, because carriers, they're slowly transitioning to end of service for a technology. And I'm sure many of you have been in the business long enough that you already have a process in place for dealing with these sunsets, for contacting your customers. But really, this is the time to capitalize on these opportunities. Contact your customers about making the switch to cellular. And if you're out on site and you see a landline while you're out there, offer to replace it, because the time to act and the time to get ahead of these problems is right now. So now that we have a better understanding of what's happening with POTS and how replacing it can boost RMR, what products can you use to replace them? Well, whatever your application, Telguard has a communicator for the job. So at Telguard, we like to think of ourselves as kind of the Swiss Army knife of the industry. We have something for just about everybody. We have different products that fit a lot of different scenarios, whether it's UL-based, AHJ-based, insurance-based, budget-based. And when we say universal, you see your universal compatibility there on the screen. We're referring to our ability to work with more alarm formats, more panels than any other brand. So you can take a system that was designed before the internet existed, before cellular existed, and you can breathe new life into it. Any Telguard fire alarm communicator available now is going to be UL-864 listed for commercial fire. It's going to meet those requirements for 2019 and earlier editions of NFPA 72, and any of them can be set up as sole pass cellular only without having to rely on a POTS lines. We all know when it comes to fire, NFPA 72, UL, they're kind of like a Bible that we have to abide by, right? So you can be confident when you're installing a Telguard fire communicator that it's gone through UL testing. It is UL listed, it has a UL certificate of approval, and it's capable of meeting whatever requirements your AHJ is looking for. So I want to dive in a little more on the specific products that we have available. So one of the ways that we replace POTS lines in fire systems is with the TG7FS. This is our flagship fire product and basically the standard in commercial fire. AHJs know us by name, they recognize the box, they love the solution and how easy it is to work with. With this unit, you can power it directly from the fire panel. You can use a plug-in transformer for the AC power if needed. It comes with a locking metal enclosure. You can still use a phone line with it or set it up as sole path. And it's going to use 5G LTE-M, Verizon, or AT&T cellular technology. So this is the communicator that we started with back in 2010 when the industry and NFPA allowed for cellular as a sole path option. And it's still going strong today, just using the latest cellular technology, 5G LTE-M. The next product I want to introduce you to is a relatively new communicator released in the past few years, I would say. It's called the TG7FP. So we know from our dealer base that the majority of our installations are for sole path, cellular only applications, right? So we also know that the majority of our dealers, they want to have a single power connection to the panel. They don't want to have to hire an electrician to install an outlet for that plug-in transformer, right? You know, it's going to add cost to the job. It's going to add time. So we came up with the TG7FP to give you the basic features that you'll need for a sole path fire application. Essentially, we've stripped out the components that make it more expensive. There's not a battery, there's no AC connection, there's no extra phone jack or Ethernet port, there's no metal enclosure. It comes in a smaller fire-rated plastic enclosure. With the TG7FP, you're getting a radio with a cellular pathway to your central station that powers directly off your fire panel. So this is a great solution for sole path applications where you don't need a secondary pathway. I mentioned dual path a couple times throughout the presentation. This is our dual path product, the TG7FE. Looking at the picture on the screen, you're probably thinking this looks just like the TG7FS. And you're right. The metal enclosure on the outside of the TG7FE is exactly the same as the TG7FS. But essentially, the difference is the TG7FE, instead of having a backup phone line or landline connection, is going to have your hardwired Ethernet port. So you can use Ethernet and internet to send signals as well as with cellular technology. This is a great solution. You know, one, as the industry and the government turn away from these POTS lines, this is something that we offer as another redundant pathway for your fire system. So you have that 5G LTE and cellular pathway, as well as that Ethernet option. Of course, it's a Telguard, so it's going to meet any NFPA 72 requirements or UL listings for dual path. This one, again, can be set up as a sole path communicator as well. Cellular and Ethernet as redundant pathways. You know, I really do feel that with POTS going away eventually over the next few years or so, that customers seeking a redundant pathway for fire, that cellular and internet seems to be the way of the future. So here we have the TG7UB. This is a product that's designed to be used as a replacement to any older TG7FS that needs a network upgrade, a carrier change, or if you have an older version and you'd like to go back and swap the board out to add panel power capability directly from the panel's auxiliary power source. So this is a great product as well for tackling that second sunset we mentioned with the 3G traffic from AT&T that was taken on by another carrier that's set to expire coming up May 2024. This is a great product for those that are still out in the field. It's very, very simple and easy to install. You can actually leave the old TG7 series enclosure on the wall, unscrew the old board, unscrew the old antenna, pop the new board on, pop the new antenna on, connect your power back, and then from there, fire off a couple signals, bring the unit back online, and you're pretty much online in no time. Oh, and by the way, we'll mention that the TG7UB is on sale this month and next month at participating distributors. So reach out to your distributor to save this month on the TG7UB. Next product I have for you guys is going to be the TG-PIM, or Power Expansion Module. Originally, this product was designed for our LTE model TG7FSs, so that you could add this as an accessory inside the enclosure, and it would allow you to get power from your fire panel to power the device. But now, since we've gone in and baked in that panel power feature into our boards, what it's mostly used for now is if you have a commercial fire setup that, let's say, doesn't have a DACT, it doesn't have a dialer, you can use the TG-PIM with the TG7FS or the TG7FE, and it's going to fit right in that metal enclosure. Then you can use the 8 additional dry contacts available on the TG-PIM. So you can take, let's just call it an ancient panel with no dialer, incorporate this TG-PIM board, modernize it, and bring that into the 21st century. So you basically breathe in new life into that old system by adding a dialer. It is UL listed to wire your alarm trouble and supervisory from the panel. So you can take a system that's never had a dialer and make it so it translates your 3 basic zones you need for fire, your alarm trouble, and supervisory. So just to kind of recap here, when you get a Telguard radio, you're getting a product that's using the latest 5G LTE and cellular technology. It can be set up as sole path. It has dual path capabilities. It's universally compatible, universally approved. This is a product that you can standardize all of your installations across the board because of that universal compatibility. Which, by the way, this is also a product that's made and supported right here in the United States. And it has the most important thing that you need to look for when you're looking at a fire alarm communicator, and that is a UL listing. So what we have here is essentially our guide to finding the right communicator for your next application. You can use this matrix to mix and match what device you need, what's best supports the pathways you need to deliver signals from your central station, what device best supports the power sources available to you that you need for your application. Another thing that I want to point out you may see here is cloud technology. So cloud technology is something that's really kind of emerged over the past few years. And as a result, we've partnered with Honeywell to integrate our fire alarm products with their CLSS connected life safety service, which is essentially their all-in-one platform. It's going to enable system integrators, facility managers to manage their systems all from one app. Essentially, product-wise, the form, fit, and function is the same as any other Telguard radio, just with that added cloud feature using the Honeywell CLSS integration. Real quick, I want to brag on our team a little bit. So our customer service and tech support team, we really do strive to be an extension of your team. This is a group that is not going to keep you waiting on the phone, that answers the call in less than 30 seconds on average. Most of them, they have over 5 years of industry experience on average. Most of them used to be technicians in the field themselves. So if you have a question along the way when you're registering a Telguard device, you're installing a Telguard device, or activating a device, you can contact them at the number here at the top of your screen, and you'll be able to get a quick answer and a quickly resolved problem. So just kind of want to recap everything I've said here. Number one, there's over 30 million commercial security life safety systems that are still relying on pods today. Chances are you got a customer that's going to be affected by that ongoing transition away from it. What does that leave us with? Opportunity. Opportunity to add value to commercial fire systems with more reliable, more cost-effective, more technologically advanced solutions that ultimately put RMR in your pocket. Telguard, we have the complete line of fire alarm communicators for you to do it with, to support any installation you may encounter, whether you want to power from the panel, whether you want to use a plug-in transformer, you want sole path, dual path, IP. Even if that panel lacks a DAC, you can use the TG-PAM to breathe new life into that old system, or future-proof it to skip the next sunset with 5G LTE technology. These are tried and true products made right here in America, and they're available now to help boost your RMR and protect your community. And we here at Telguard, we really do want to team up with you to make this transition away from POTS a smooth one. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Daniela for any questions you guys may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott. All right. This is usually a time where we start the Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, please, you can start submitting them now. First question that I have here is, Scott, you mentioned IP Ethernet as an alternative pathway to POTS. Can I use IP as a sole path option to deliver signals from my fire system?
Okay, yes, great question. So the short answer is no. You can set up your fire system to have it as IP primary or Ethernet primary with a cell backup, but the code NFPA 72, the UL listing, it does not allow for an internet only pathway. A lot of that has to do with, when you go into a site and you talk to a customer about adding something to their network, their IT team, they're going to have 20,000 questions about what port is it using, what's it using it for, why is it using it. So these IP connections, these Ethernet connections, they are designed to be outbound only, because think of your financial mercantile spaces. They don't want you going in through their network into their network. And from our perspective as security system, we just need to make sure that it calls out. So the reason that IP only is not allowed is because that cellular is going to give you the pathway back into the unit if you needed to do a firmware update or some sort of change in that way. And that's why the code doesn't allow it. It kind of fits with how our customers want to do things. They don't want anything going in on their Ethernet. And it also kind of fits with how we're set up to do things with getting in there on that cellular connection.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Great response. The next question I have here is, how do I know what NFPA 72 requires for my sole path or dual path communicator to meet code?
Very good question. So the first thing you want to do is you always want to check with your fire marshal to see what version of NFPA 72 they're using and what those requirements are. So what I would recommend once you have that information is if you actually just go to our website, telguard.com, you click on the fire alarm communicator you're thinking about. Under certifications and other resources on that page, you'll see a link for inspection checklist. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell you year by year, every edition that's come out, 2010, 13, 16, 19, and whether that's set up as a backup, sole path, or primary, whatever it may be, whatever is required, it's going to map it out, and you can check off exactly what you need referenced to that specific code requirements. It's all consolidated onto one page. So my recommendation would be to check out that inspection checklist on telguard.com, and it should map everything out for you.
Awesome. Okay. Let me see here. All right. It doesn't appear that we have any more Q&A questions, which must mean that you were very thorough, Scott. But if there are no more questions, then we can go ahead and start wrapping up. Thank you so much to everybody today that joined. Thank you, Scott, for your time and for such an informative presentation. It was great. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, you will be able to watch this on demand on ESA's YouTube channel. So if there's anything that you missed, you can check it out there, or of course, reach to Scott directly. But with that being said, thank you everybody so much. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for attending. Thank you, ESA. Always a pleasure.
Bye.